Venerable Sirs, and Upasaka, Upasika, and then friends, good morning. Okay. So before taking these 8 precepts, I still want to continue to introduce. Okay. When we say that we take the refuge to the Buddha, and as I just said yesterday, and we could actually, and that also explain why people have a different way to understand the Buddha. Okay. Now, some people might, especially the Chinese, may be wondering why I want to talk about that, because that certainly is also a question to me in the past. Like, say that actually I wasn't brought up from like a Buddhist family. You could kind of like say that I was brought from the folk religion in my family. But I won't say even in my family, actually it's my grandmother's, my father's side family. And my father, and I could say my parents actually, more like atheists. They don't believe in any religion. And actually they will not really encourage me to believe in any religion. And then, of course, for the teachings that to understand religion content, you will be surprised actually not from Buddhists. That was not my first. So my first was Christian, and I started to learn Bible first, rather than really learning any Buddhist text. And it's also very unfortunate because in Chinese family, usually, nowadays even the same. Even nowadays, the internet is so popular, but especially in old days, what we get all these Chinese Buddhist text is always 地藏经啊, 普门品啊, and 阿弥陀经啊, is kind of like Amitabha Sutra. This is trying to relate to the Avalokitesvara, Guan Yin, and then the Siddhikalapa Sutra, I like that. And those texts are very different from, maybe almost like what we are talking now. It's completely like a different kind of word, okay? It's purely devotional. And believing, kind of like encouraging you, if you chant the Buddha name, Amitabha, or if you chant the Guan Yin name, or if you chant the Siddhikalapa name, you will be saved. It's almost nothing different from this monastic religion. I think even more than a monastic religion, far more than a monastic religion. It's very evangelical, even in an American way, because I was trained actually a little bit like the theology in Europe, but in Europe theology is a little, I'm sure for those who study theology, they know, still Americans are much more evangelical, right? So just have Jesus' name, everything is okay, like that. But what then, of course, later I became a monk. And of course, afterward I come to Buddhism because I read something about the Buddhist text now, how the Buddha view about the world and so forth. That attracted me a lot. Okay, now back here is, I explain one thing, maybe easier. One time I went to China, and then it was the time, actually I came to Boston. I live in Boston at the time. And then because of conference, so we went to China with some professor for conference. And then when I went to, after the conference, it's about the Yogacara, Pumi, or about the yoga school. No, not that yoga, okay? The meditation yoga meaning Buddhism. And then we still have few days, and then I took one professor to visit Guangzhou, if everyone knows China, Guangzhou. Guangzhou had one of the very popular places. They still retain the Sixth Patrick, the Zen master. You know, everyone, if they study meditation, even though you are into Zen Buddhism or not, but you might know there's a Zen, right? Now in America, Zen tea, Zen restaurant, you know, even now, Zen bottle. Anyway, so, and it's still the body of the Zen master is still retained. You know, the Zen master, Hui Yue, was born during the 7th century, 600 something. Now it's 1,500 years, or no, actually more than that, something like that ago. And his body is still there. So, and this professor, because how he become actually he's original as a Jewish guy, but he was really into, he's teaching Buddhism. So he asked me, he said that, why don't, can you, because I speak Cantonese as well, you know, the local language there. He said, why don't we just go to visit Zen temple, you know? So that's why I arranged something, I called someone else, whether he can have a car, because it's far away from the city. So anyway, so then we just, then we have a chance to go to visit the temple. You know, still, when you go into the temple, you saw the Buddha statue. I just go to worship, you know, and then worship and then. And he was just standing there. He doesn't do anything. And he was teaching Buddhism more than 35 years, maybe 40 years at least. You know, he's one of the very famous, you know, professional in Buddhism. And he had written a lot of this Yogacara kind of thing, you know, very difficult text. And he read Chinese very well, you know. And then anyway, somehow we, you know the Chinese, some Chinese temple is like, that's the Buddha when you go inside the big hall. But you have to go upstairs again, another hall. And I think the third hall is the place they kept you could say the corpse. Corpse is not nice, you know, the body of the Zen master Hui Yue. Actually, there were 4. 2 are very, very famous masters. 2 are like his disciples, something like that. The body is still there. So we were lucky because when I want to go inside, it was blocked. They would not approach you. Then there was a monk standing there who are like guarding that place. I asked the monk, can I come in? He was kind of hesitate, but luckily I speak the language, as I say. Sometimes language really help, you know. And he was surprised. I say, actually, we are come from America, so far away. You know, we are just carry this kind of, you know, in a nice way we say, carry this kind of, you know, sincerity or, you know, honor. Really want to pay the respect to this Patrick. And he say, okay. So, and he, of course, he trusts I'm a monk also. Huh? So he opened the door for us, and then we went inside. I was really surprised when I went inside. The first thing that professor do was prostrate to the statue, prostrate. He paid the respect, like prostrate. But he, as I say, he didn't do anything, you know, before when we went to visit any temple, we just stand there. But they paid the prostrate to the, and anyway, then after we visit that, and I asked him, I say, I kind of making a half joke. I say, I never knew that you would just bow down to somebody. I joke with him. I say, I never knew that you would bow down to somebody. But I didn't see you bow down to the Buddha statue. But why you want to bow down to, you know, the Patrick? And his answer is, he say, I don't know whether the Buddha is alive, but I know he is alive. Okay. It was really, really sincere to bow down. Not like, really, you could see like, I was really surprised. I was really like moved. It feels so moved to bow down, you know. Now, this is, I want to say this is, of course, from that. This is, remember yesterday I also reflect one thing, like this year when I was in the Taiwan Museum. So, and then you saw the old lady, every statue, she bow, and I was just standing beside her, and And then lots of people look at me because like I'm a monk, but I just, I even do not show anything. And actually that time, of course I know why I don't do this, you know. But when the people look at me, I started to give a reason to myself, at least, why I don't do that, and why she's doing that, and why I disagree with her that she's doing that, you know, and so forth. I have to understand. But why then I come to the temple, when I saw the statue, then I will bow down? Why that the statue keep in the museum, and I just look at statues as if like just artifact? Why? Okay. Okay. In other words, I mean, usually when we understand the Buddha as the one that is awakened, okay, remember the awakened, and certainly there's a proof already that the Buddha really was born, you know, 2,600 years ago, you know, in Nepal. And then he got enlightened in India, that's under a Bodhi tree. So in a place called Buddha Gaya, okay? So, but since 13th century, then when the Muslim was conquered, actually, the India, you know, India was actually being ruled by these, I'm sure if you know the history, by the Muslim Empire, you know, or Mughal Empire. So then the whole Buddhism was completely destroyed here, you know, like the first university in the world, according to the record, okay, was completely burned. They burned it 3 months, the whole book, you know, that's why. And then the Buddha Gaya was also either buried or burned or destroyed, okay. But anyway, that's the reason why later on in India, from 13th century until 20th century almost, Buddhism is completely vanished, you know, from India land. The same thing as Central Asia. You know, in the old days, the Central Asia was all Buddhist, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and then Afghanistan was very famous Buddhist country, but completely wiped out. You know, the Buddhism completely destroyed. Anyway, so because why I want to mention this, that's the reason why we have Indian people here. I also want to mention. Nowadays, if you go to India, people understand the Buddha differently. And all the temples, even if they were not destroyed, they were occupied by we occupied by this, the Brahmin. And they take the Buddhist temple as the Hindu temple. So if you learn the history during 20th century, so like Dhammapala as one of the activists in Sri Lanka, from Sri Lanka, so actually it's interesting also. I think sometimes I need to call some other people like the Buddhists. Some Buddhists are very pacifist, you know, you know, not very proactive, very, yeah, not pessimism, it's very passive in a way. And he was actually, why I want to say that, actually he even educated also from a Christian family. But then later on, he was surprised to know, as he was a Sri Lankan people, but how couldn't he understand much about Buddhism? When he knew Buddhism so well, and he was surprised, what happened with India? Buddhism is completely gone, and Sri Lanka as an island. You know, they start from get the Buddhism from India to the island, and now only Sri Lanka have the Buddhism, even though they almost also destroyed by the British Empire at that time. Anyway, so he was the one who went back to India and found that all the Buddhist sites become the Hindu temple. That's the one he was. That's why he was really, you know. So because I guess he knew what is the international law or something like that, and he was helping by a lot of Japanese monks in those days, financially at least. So that's the reason now you need to thank few things for people now why the Indian Buddhist site been revived, because of he was the one who really, and he was jailed actually in India also. So it's that this is not a Hindu temple, this is a Buddhist temple. You should be returning to the Buddhist monk to look after the temple, right? Anyway, however, you know, from 13th century up to that period, in India, they have this kind of culture called the Purana. Purana is a thing, it's almost like the, family record, you know, kind of family record. So the Hindu sadhu, and they somehow make up this Purana saying that, you know, the Buddha was actually the reincarnation of the god Vishnu, okay? But certainly this is not the Buddhist understanding, okay? But anyway, I want to say that, so the image of the Buddha, when we take the refuge to Buddha, I understand even when I was in India, when I visited in India, and sometimes when you pay the respect to the Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, my image of the Buddha is different, and their image, some of the Indian people, they will think he's a god. You know what I'm saying, okay? But I still need to tell you why in history. It's because during that time, Buddhism completely gone. And now nobody tells them what Buddhism is, but only the Hindu can tell them what Buddhism is. And okay. And now, one picture I need to say from the Buddha say, this is what I also love, the one. That's from the one sutta called Vakali. Okay, let me just say. Vakali is a very famous sutta in the Buddhism because Vakali was basically he was a monk, and then he got really ill. But then he asked his disciple to inform the Buddha that he really wanted to see the Buddha. And then, that of course, then the Buddha somehow, you know, visited Vakali, and he was really ill and painful in the whole physical body, and he couldn't kind of like really, maybe griefly ill, I guess. So, and then the Buddha, so he was, of course, when he saw the Buddha, he wanted to really like, you know, pay the respect, but the Buddha said, you know, I got to sit already, don't move, you know, so stay there. So, and I thought that's also one thing to show the Buddha was, you know, really compassionate. And then the Buddha asked him, kind of like, you know, do you have the remorse, or do you feel regret, you know, something like that. And he said, yes, I do have remorse, and I do have regret, you know. Then the Buddha also, the second thing the Buddha wanted to make sure that, by asking him, so do you have kind of like you have, whether you're virtue or you have something you feel that your virtue is not good enough, you know. But he said, no, I think that my virtue is good, you know. So, but I just still have the remorse and this regret. Then the Buddha came out asking me, what is that you are having the remorses about? What is regret about? So then he's kind of like, of course I cannot say it for sure, but I think we kind of like, you know, mean that the regret and the remorse maybe, you know, highly due to because he wanted to see the Buddha. So that from that, and then the Buddha replied him. He said, "What are you kind of like? What are you talking about? Because why you want to see this kind of, you know, in Buddhist perspective, mean this kind of the body is really, you know, full, you know." And then that's one of the very famous passage. And then he say. I don't want to recite it wrong anyway. Maybe I didn't write it down. Oh, yes. Then one of the passages say, okay, say, Dhammam passati, so mam passati. So, yo mam passati, so dhammam passati. Right? Dhammam hi vakkali, passanto mang passanto dhammam passati. You know. So certainly this, I guess this statement later on become really expand to a lot of philosophical discussion. So, and he say that, then the Buddha replied me, so why you want to see this kind of body with like corrupted or full, you know? He say, everyone who see the Dhamma, then he will see me. So everyone see me, then they will see the Dharma, okay? So he say, Vakkali. So kind of like, because when while you're seeing the Dhamma, so you're seeing me. While you're seeing me, then you see the Dharma. So I guess, I know this passage, I want to say is, I guess sometimes when we say we take the refuge to the Buddha, you know, if we take it in other kind of level, so I explained yesterday and then today, when we say the refuge to the Buddha, and in take it other level, you can understand that when we are taking the refuge to Buddha, we are not just precisely like some people take the statue, Buddha statue, as taking the Buddha level, or some other people thinking there was the Buddha who are awakened one, right, under the Bodhi tree, or the historical Buddha that we know there was a Buddha where he was born, how he was raised up, and so forth, until he got enlightenment, and some actually when they take the refuge to the Buddha, it can take it almost like because they experience the Dhamma, and then when they take the refuge to the Buddha, in a sense, mean like the Dhamma is the Buddha and the Buddha is the Dhamma. It's kind of like that, right? So this is how I think. That's maybe explain, at least to me, even I myself, explain to me that why sometimes when I chant the word like Buddhaṃ Saranam Gacchāmi, like that, like take a refuge to the Buddha, so sometimes I have a different kind of emotion, or you could say the emotion, or this kind of, the feelings there. Because sometimes actually the way I relate, not because the statue was there, and not because I was thinking about a historic Buddha, not because I was, like imagine there was an awakened one, but I feel the Dhamma, right? So I feel the Dhamma, and when I take the refuge to the Buddha, and I feel the Buddha, something like that. This is what I like to explain, and also explain maybe why even people may have a different reaction to I just explained when you go to a museum to see a statue. It's because when I look at a statue at a time in a temple, to me it's just a statue with beautiful carving. I don't have to worship every statue. And it's because the way I look at the Buddha, it's not the statue, kind of like this, But of course some people take it differently, like I just mentioned. Then they saw every statue, they thought they need to respect the statue. Maybe they are thinking as a Dhamma as well, I'm not sure, but this is why I want to say, kind of also important to tell people, we don't want to be just judging people. The same thing like, you don't worship the statue, but do not think they are wrong. The same thing, some people might not want to worship the statue. Do not force them that they have to worship a statue in order to show they really pay the respect to the Buddha, But now you're in a temple, still I need to tell you, but it's just a culturally that people are doing this way, right? Okay, I think surely the time is a little long now. We just take the 8th precept now, shall we?